74.
A quiet mansion in Minneapolis became the center of a shocking federal raid when FBI and ICE agents uncovered a hidden tunnel, massive substance movement, and 96 arrests linked to trusted professionals. How could something this large stay hidden for years? What signs did investigators notice before the raid? Join us as we uncover the layers behind this discovery.
90 kilos of cocaine were found in the trunk of a vehicle at a Border Patrol checkpoint. The markings of the cocaine packages were the Scorpion. This was the label for Amado and the Juarez cartel.
The pattern America kept missing. For many years, the fight against substance cartels in the United States focused on street dealers, border seizures, and violent arrests. This approach caught thousands of people, but it did not slow the flow of substances. Federal agencies slowly learned a difficult truth. The real strength of modern cartels was not in guns or gangs. It was in logistics, paperwork, and trusted professionals inside the system. Groups such as the Sinaloa cartel, Jalisco New Generation cartel, and Los Zetas changed how they operated inside America. They stopped relying on visible crime. They began to build quiet supply chains that looked like normal business activity. Substances moved through legal trucking routes, rental properties, storage units, warehouses, and private homes. Money moved through banks, real estate, non-profit accounts, and shell companies created by people with clean records. This change did not happen overnight. It developed over decades as cartels learned from law enforcement tactics. Every time the government cracked down on violence, the cartels responded by becoming less visible. They learned that the safest way to operate was to blend into legal systems that people trusted. Between the late 2000s and the early 2020s, many federal cases showed the same pattern. Accountants were charged for moving cartel money through business accounts. Real estate brokers were caught buying homes and warehouses for traffickers using clean credit histories. Lawyers were prosecuted for setting up shell companies and fake business contracts that hid millions of dollars. Non-profit organizations were exposed as fronts that received grants while secretly moving criminal funds. These were not street criminals. These were educated professionals who understood how to move money without raising alarms. The Substance Enforcement Administration and the Federal Bureau of Investigation began to describe this method with a quiet term used in internal analysis. They called it administrative invisibility. This meant that nothing looked illegal on the surface. Documents were filed correctly, taxes were paid, properties were registered, businesses had licenses. The crime existed behind the paperwork, not outside it. At the same time, investigators on the southern border were finding another sign of this change. Substance tunnels were being discovered between Mexico and the United States, especially near San Diego and parts of Arizona. These were not simple holes in the ground. Some had lighting, rail systems, ventilation, drainage, and reinforced walls. They were built to move large amounts of product quietly and repeatedly. These tunnels were not made for escape. They were made for routine logistics. One tunnel found near San Diego stretched hundreds of feet and connected directly into warehouse space. Another had an elevator and an underground rail cart. These discoveries showed how organized and patient the cartels had become. They were willing to invest time, money, and engineering into methods that avoided attention instead of creating fear. Federal agents noticed a connection between the tunnels at the border and properties deeper inside the country. Substances did not stop at the border. They moved through homes, storage units, and rented commercial buildings that looked completely ordinary. The same discipline used to build tunnels was used to run safe houses and distribution points far from public view. This is where professionals became important. A rented warehouse, with proper paperwork would never attract suspicion. A large home owned by someone with a respected career would never seem like a threat. A non-profit receiving community funds would never be questioned quickly. Cartels understood that trust was stronger than secrecy. From 2008 to 2023, federal indictments across several states revealed that laundering networks were often built by people with no criminal background. In Texas, California, Illinois, Georgia, and New York, court records showed lawyers and accountants helping to move millions for trafficking groups. In some cases, these professionals did not touch substances. They only moved money and documents. Yet their role was essential to keeping the system alive. Investigators also learned that violent behavior attracted attention, while paperwork delayed it. A firing brings the police within minutes. A suspicious bank transfer may take months to review. A missing case file might never be noticed. This shift from violence to documentation allowed networks to operate for years without disruption. But if this is the pattern, then how did one quiet neighborhood in Minneapolis start showing the same signs seen in cartel border cities? The arrest and discovery of the hidden passage. Federal teams had monitored the property for a long period before taking action. The house was located in a quiet and respected neighborhood. The owners were known locally as immigration attorneys who handled civil cases and community matters. Nothing about the outside of the property suggested unusual activity. This made the location low risk for suspicion and high value for concealment. The operation began before sunrise. Multiple teams approached from different directions without noise or visible signals. Vehicles stopped at a distance to avoid attention. Agents moved on foot to secure all entry points at the same time. The objective was to prevent communication from inside the house and preserve any evidence in its original state. When agents entered, they noticed that the interior structure of the home did not match standard residential design. Some doors were reinforced with internal steel layers. Certain hallways could be sealed quickly. This suggested that the layout had been modified for control and delay rather than comfort. All occupants inside the house were separated immediately. The two attorneys who owned the property were secured and prevented from using any devices. Phones were placed in signal-blocking containers. Computers and storage drives were powered down carefully to avoid data loss. Paper files were collected in the order they were found. The goal at this stage was evidence protection, not questioning. As the lower level of the mansion was cleared, agents observed structural features that did not match the visible design of the building. One section of the wall appeared thicker than expected. A narrow air gap produced a steady flow of cool air. This airflow did not connect to the normal ventilation system of the house. Behind a concealed panel, agents found a reinforced opening that led downward. The passage was lined with concrete and steel. It contained fixed lighting along the ceiling and electrical wiring along the sides. Ventilation ducts ran the length of the tunnel to maintain air quality. This was not an unfinished space. It was engineered for regular use. Further movement into the passage revealed a large underground chamber. The space was organized like a processing area rather than storage. Tables were arranged in rows. Containers were stacked neatly. Computer terminals and scanning devices were positioned beside shelving units. The layout showed repeated activity over time. Large quantities of packaged substances were found arranged in groups. Each package was sealed and marked with codes. Nearby equipment included scanners and logging devices used to track movement. This showed that items were recorded as they entered and left the chamber. The setup resembled a controlled distribution point rather than a hiding place. Weapons were discovered in concealed compartments along the walls. Protective gear and communication tools were stored in an orderly manner. Their placement suggested readiness and planning, not random storage. Agents also found miners inside a separated section of the underground area. This indicated that the space had been used for more than one purpose. Their presence changed the classification of the site from a substance handling location to a broader movement center. Engineering teams began mapping the underground structure. The passage extended beyond the base of the mansion and continued under nearby ground. Smaller connecting paths linked the main corridor to other hidden points. This showed that the tunnel was designed for movement and logistics, not for escape. At the same time, other federal teams executed warrants at related locations connected through documents and surveillance records. Offices, rented units, and storage spaces were searched. The packaging style, labeling method, and tracking tools found in those places matched what was discovered beneath the mansion. This confirmed that the underground chamber was part of a larger network. By the end of the operation, many individuals connected to the system were detained at different sites. These included drivers, guards, record handlers, and support workers. The most significant arrests were the property owners, whose professional roles had provided a layer of trust that prevented suspicion for a long time. Investigators concluded that the mansion was not a final destination for any items. It functioned as a conversion and logging point. Shipments arrived through hidden routes, were processed and recorded underground, and then moved out again through normal-looking channels above ground. But investigators weren't looking for a tunnel. They were looking for something far more dangerous: paperwork. When legal systems become camouflage, organized crime in the United States has changed in a very important way. It no longer depends only on street dealers or violent groups. It depends on paperwork, legal identity, and people who understand how systems work. Over many years, federal investigations have shown that law offices, financial records, and official documents can be used to hide criminal activity in plain sight. This pattern has appeared in many real court cases. In several states, attorneys have been charged and convicted for helping move cartel money through legal channels. These lawyers did not carry substances. They did not take part in violence. They helped create companies, trusts, and contracts that made criminal money look legal. They understood how to open accounts, register businesses, and file documents that would not trigger suspicion. One clear example came from Texas, where a licensed attorney was sentenced in federal court for helping a Mexican trafficking organization launder millions of dollars through bank accounts and property purchases. The lawyer created shell companies and used them to buy real estate that stored substance money safely. On paper, the transactions looked like normal investments. In reality, they were protecting cartel profits. In California and Illinois, federal cases showed attorneys and accountants working together to move large sums through client trust accounts. These accounts are normally used to hold money for legal matters. Because they are protected by professional trust, they receive less immediate scrutiny. Criminal groups learned that this trust could be used as a shield. Shell companies are a major part of this method. These companies exist on paper, but do not run real businesses. They have addresses, tax numbers, and bank accounts. They can receive and send large payments without raising alarms if the documents look correct. Lawyers are often the ones who register these companies because they know the legal process well. Once created, the shell companies can be used to hide where money comes from and where it goes. Non-profit organizations have also appeared in federal investigations. In several cases, non-profits received grant money or donations while secretly being used to move criminal funds. Because non-profits are connected to community service, they often receive trust from banks and agencies. This trust delays audits and questions. Criminal groups use this delay to move money quietly. Immigration filings and housing petitions have been misused as well. These documents require identity checks, proof of address, and legal representation. When corrupt professionals handle these filings, they can create records that support false identities or safe locations for people involved in trafficking. The paperwork becomes a way to move people and money without raising attention. Court trust is a powerful shield. Judges, clerks, and officials rely on the honesty of licensed professionals. When a lawyer files documents, those papers are rarely questioned unless there is a clear reason. Criminal networks understand this. They place trusted professionals at the center of their operations because the legal system is built on good faith. Federal audits over the years have also revealed problems with missing case files and misrouted warrants. In some districts, records were found to be incomplete or incorrectly archived. Warrants expired because they were not processed in time. Evidence logs had gaps that were only noticed much later. These administrative weaknesses create opportunities for criminal groups to operate longer without detection. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Substance Enforcement Administration have both reported that paperwork delays are a major challenge in fighting organized crime. A suspicious bank transfer may take months to investigate. A shell company may exist for years before anyone checks its real activity. During this time, money continues to move. This is why modern cartels prefer paperwork over violence. Because once paperwork is compromised, you don't need guns. You can move anything through the country unnoticed. The underground logistics model. Substance tunnels discovered along the border between Mexico and the United States have changed how investigators understand cartel logistics. These tunnels are not crude holes dug in secret. Many of them are advanced engineering projects designed for repeated use over long periods. They are built with patience, planning, and clear purpose. Several major tunnel discoveries near San Diego have shown the level of detail involved. Federal agents have found tunnels with reinforced walls, electrical wiring, rail tracks, ventilation systems, and lighting. Some had drainage to prevent flooding, others had elevators and pulley systems to move heavy loads. These were not escape paths. They were built to move large amounts of substances quietly and reliably. In one well-known case near San Diego, a tunnel extended hundreds of feet and connected a warehouse in Mexico to a building in the United States. It had a rail cart system to move packages quickly. The walls were supported with wood and steel beams. Air was pumped through ventilation pipes to allow workers to stay inside for long periods. This level of construction showed that the tunnel was meant to operate like a hidden hallway for business, not a desperate route for escape. Tunnels serve a simple purpose in cartel operations. They allow repetition without exposure. Trucks crossing legal checkpoints can be searched. People walking through ports of entry can be stopped. A tunnel removes those risks completely. Once built, it can be used again and again without attracting attention. This idea of repetition is central to cartel thinking. They do not want risky, one-time movements. They want safe paths that can be used for years. A tunnel may take months to build, but once finished, it becomes a permanent part of the supply chain. Investigators have noticed that the discipline used in tunnel construction also appears in distribution centers far from the border. Substances do not move randomly after crossing into the country. They follow organized routes that look like normal shipping patterns. Warehouses, storage units, rental homes, and commercial buildings are used as quiet transfer points. In many federal cases, agents found that packages were labeled, weighed, and recorded with care. Barcodes, packaging types, and digital logs were used to track each load. This method is similar to how large delivery companies manage inventory. Every item has a record. Every movement has a time and a destination. This level of organization allows criminal groups to know exactly where products are at all times. This system reduces mistakes and loss. If a shipment goes missing, they know where it was last recorded. If a route becomes unsafe, they can redirect future loads. This is not a random crime. It is organized logistics that depends on accuracy and records. Because of this structure, a city does not need to be near a border or a port to become a hub. A hub is simply a place where goods can be received, stored, and sent out again without suspicion. Highways, rail lines, and commercial delivery routes make this possible anywhere in the country. Minneapolis, like many major cities, sits at the center of important road and rail networks. Trucks pass through daily, carrying goods across states. Warehouses operate around the clock. Delivery vehicles move constantly. This normal flow creates perfect cover for hidden distribution. But substances were only one half of the movement being tracked. The second ledger, movement of people. Federal investigations into human trafficking have shown patterns that are very similar to substance trafficking routes. The same highways, storage sites, and safe houses used for substances are often used to move people. This connection has been documented in reports from the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Trafficking networks depend on movement that does not attract attention. They use normal travel methods such as buses, cars, and commercial vehicles. People are moved in small numbers to avoid suspicion. These movements often follow the same paths used for narcotics because those routes are already tested and safe. One major tool in this process is paperwork. Fake identification cards, false immigration documents, and altered records allow traffickers to move victims across states without raising alarms. Several ICE operations over the past decade have uncovered document forgery centers hidden behind businesses that appeared to offer legal services. These centers produced identification that looked official enough to pass quick checks. Immigration filings have also been misused. When corrupt professionals submit paperwork, they can create records that make a person appear to be legally present or connected to a safe address. These documents delay questions and allow movement to continue. Coastal transit zones appear often in trafficking investigations. Ports and large cities with busy transport systems provide easy exit and entry points. From these areas, victims can be moved inland using regular transportation without standing out. Movement logs in past cases showed repeated travel between interior cities and coastal areas over set time periods. Investigators have also noticed rotation patterns. Victims are often moved every few weeks. This prevents them from forming connections or drawing attention in one place. Reports from trafficking cases show cycles that range from about 11 days to about 19 days before relocation. This pattern keeps people disorientated and harder to trace. Safe houses play a key role in this system. These locations are usually ordinary homes or apartments. They are chosen because they do not attract attention. Neighbors see nothing unusual. Deliveries and visitors appear normal. Inside, people are kept briefly before being moved again. The link between substance routes and trafficking routes is not accidental. Criminal groups prefer to reuse systems that already work. If a highway path is safe for narcotics, it is also safe for moving people. If a storage site is quiet and unnoticed, it can serve both purposes. Federal cases have shown that document centers, safe houses, and distribution hubs often operate together. One place handles paperwork, another handles temporary holding, another manages transport. Each part looks harmless on its own. Together, they form a network. This second ledger of movement is harder to detect than substances. Substances can be weighed and tested. People can hide in plain sight. They travel in cars, buses, and planes that move thousands of others every day. Without careful records, their movement looks like ordinary travel. And this is where the investigation stopped being about a house and became about a national network. The 96 arrests problem. Large federal operations often end with many arrests. Photos are taken, evidence is displayed, charges are announced. To the public, this looks like a major victory. To investigators who study cartel structure, it is only a small step in a much larger problem. Over many years, the Substance Enforcement Administration and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have learned that modern cartels are built with what analysts describe as a replaceable labor layer. This layer includes drivers, couriers, guards, document runners, warehouse workers, and low-level coordinators. These people are important for daily work, but they are not central to decision-making. They can be removed without damaging the core system. This structure is similar to how large companies operate. Tasks are divided into small roles. Each person knows only what they need to know. If one worker is arrested, another person can take the role within days. The system continues without interruption. Investigations have shown that many of these roles are assigned like payroll jobs. People are paid weekly or monthly to complete simple tasks. They pick up packages, they drop off items, they watch doors, they move vehicles. They do not control money. They do not control routes. They do not understand the full network. Because of this, their arrest does not expose the whole structure. This is why large arrest numbers often do not stop supply chains. The leadership that designs routes, controls money, and manages paperwork is rarely present at distribution sites. They stay distant from daily movement. Their protection comes from separation. Federal agents have seen this pattern repeatedly. After a major takedown, new workers appear quickly. Routes that were disrupted start operating again within weeks. Safe houses change, vehicles change, but the system behind them remains. This repeating pattern has been described by officials using the idea of a Hydra effect. When one part is removed, another part grows in its place. Arresting visible workers does not remove the hidden planners. It only removes the outer layer. This reality has been frustrating for law enforcement. Years of work can result in dozens of arrests, yet substance flow continues. Trafficking routes continue. The money movement continues. The visible network changes, but the invisible one stays. This is why investigators now focus more on documents, financial records, and communication systems than on the people moving packages. People are easier to replace than paperwork. Financial trails are harder to rebuild once exposed. So if arrests don't end it, what actually does? Damage to networks like this. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.